Joining me now is retired Special Forces Commander Heston Russell, served as a platoon commander of the Australian Special Forces unit in Afghanistan. Since leaving the ADF, Heston has established Voice of a Veteran, a platform which advocates for ex-servicemen and women's needs. Heston, thank you for your time. What's your reaction to this report today?
G'day, Kieran. Thanks so much for having me on the show. Today, it was great to finally hear the Chief of Defence Force, our senior leader, stand up and thank and commend the many Special Forces operators, personnel who have excelled themselves in operations in Afghanistan since 2001, and particularly over the last decade. It was also fantastic to hear him ask for patience as now this inquiry is released and the official findings are passed over to subsequent legal action by the Special Investigator. At the same time, as he said to ask for patience, I was extremely disappointed to hear his actions to persecute the many by asking the Governor-General to remove the meritorious unit citation from the many who have also excelled themselves and not involved in this inquiry, including our 20 fallen heroes who have died during the period that he has commented on, 2007 and 2013.
How are you and your colleagues, those still serving and former service personnel, reacting to this very difficult time?
So we knew that the findings were coming, obviously, and we welcome this investigation, and I think it's fantastic, and many others, including a very gallant group of Special Air Service Regiment men, have released an article stating how there are still so many who hope to move forward from this while the official proceedings continue, to continue the great work that continues on in silence for the Australian people, and hopefully allow this to move on. And there has been so many actions and activities, as the Chief of Defence Force alluded to, that have been going on for at least the last 5 years, and now hopefully give us the chance to move forward, allow the official proceedings to do what is needed to be done, and move forward serving Australia in honour, as so many have done, while those few who are addressed in this report, in this inquiry, and those systemic failures are addressed.
So just for our viewers, the context here, there were about 3,000, weren't there? 3,000 Special Forces troops that served in this period in Afghanistan. Today, very sadly for the ADF, but we know now 19 have been recommended to be investigated under criminal investigation by the Federal Police. But it is a minority, still a significant number of 19 individuals, though, recommended for police prosecution, Heston.
Yes, absolutely. From what I've understood, that those individuals have also been served with notice to show cause within the Defence Force disciplinary action proceedings, administrative action proceedings today as well. And there are still investigations to ongo into the abdications of command and leadership responsibility that the Chief of Defence Force noted, given the powers of commanders and the responsibility of commanders to not only as a part of delegation, to follow up with that responsibility and not abdicate that to any other actions, be those tactical, operational, reporting or governance. That's still to ongo, so they may indeed be more implicated through their negligence in command, and I stand myself here as a commander welcoming those reviews. But as you've stated correctly, there are 19, from what we've been told, that are being passed on to the official legal proceedings for the subsequent investigations, and 25 implicated within the report released today.
Were you shocked by some of the detail here, including, certainly as I was reading it at the Defence Headquarters, the notion of blooding a young soldier and being told, you know, in the field, in a foreign country, by your superior in a small group, a small battle group of what I guess 5 or 6 people maximum, he's told to kill a prisoner. I mean, that situation is just horrendous.
Well, that situation that you've explained is absolutely unacceptable. I haven't seen that or witnessed that myself. All that I can speak to is some of the comments with regards to culture and the warrior culture. I think it's very key to note that our Special Forces served with absolute distinction, valour and courage during some of the most gripping situations I myself have lived through, and seen men adopt a warrior culture that saw them serve each other with purpose, not fear for their own lives in service of their country. Saw some of our most magnificent warriors die in the heat of battle. the correct application and transition of that culture back to what is required outside of combat may definitely have been a difficult time for some people. The true test of culture is during crisis, and I got to see some individuals and teams perform to the most magnificent levels of human courage and sacrifice. At the same time, war and exposure to such conflict can indeed corrupt and bring out the worst, and we've seen that, and we're now dealing with that. I think it's just so important to note that even back in 2016, I was tasked with a fantastic team of civilian psychologists, psychiatrists, sociologists to change the mechanisms through which we selected people on the Special Forces selection course, to identify and quantify emotional intelligence, to understand the purpose that they were applying for selection, be that responsibility as opposed to entitlement. So there is a lot of catch-up that this report is covering. As the Chief of Defence Force said, for 5 years we've been undergoing these changes within the Special Forces community, and it's great to see some light being brought to that, but there is definitely still more work to be done, and I'd love to talk a bit more on the veteran mental health space from here moving forward.
Yeah, well, I do want to ask you about that in a moment as well, because and you've made the point repeatedly, and I think it's well worth it to repeat it. The vast majority and the wonderful heroes, as you're referring to, that served, and we're talking about a minority. Do you believe that the rotations, the intensity and repetition of the rotations in the field by individuals being sent back time and again had an impact that exacerbated this sort of behaviour uncovered by Paul Brereton today?
There are so many potential factors, and so many of those have to be individually focused on for individuals. I can tell you here myself that if there was another opportunity to deploy with my soldiers within a short period of time upon returning, and you did not let me deploy with them again, and one of those were lost or one of them was injured or something happened, that you would have invoked more trauma on myself living with that fact, not being able to be there to support them. We were trained to the most elite level of training. Imagine training a professional rugby team to play in the World Cup and to play in the finals every single day. We craved the ability to put our skills to the test in the service of our country, and we did so as volunteers time and time again. There were fantastic support mechanisms during each rotation, on the way in, on the way out, medical, psychological screening, but first and foremost, we had each other, and the culture we had in that unit, in that Special Operations Command, and with each other, bar a few that have been identified, was the force field that protected us during combat and the net that caught us when we came back and suffered our mental health issues.
And when you look at the Voice of a Veteran, this platform which you have established, explain to us what this is about and how it fits into the broader response to the mental health component, the families, loved ones affected as well. How does this work?
Absolutely. So for those who watched and heard the Chief of Defence Forces address, he spoke to identifying a systemic issue with the Special Forces units taking on too much responsibility, being pulled in too many different directions that cause them to shortcut things like governance, reporting and other areas, and identify that they would never put their hand up to state that they were overworked, that they were overstretched, that they were under-resourced to do so. So he's identified that proactive intervention has been required, and he's gone about setting forth those proactive interventions, mechanisms and restructures. But then in the same breath, he has offered support to those who may be impacted by this, again offering the current reactive mental health support. What we need to see now is a proactive mental health support plan combined by the Department of Veterans Affairs and Department of Defence to identify those who are directly impacted by this report today. We are talking about a report that is recommending removing honours and awards from the many who have been previously commended, who wear those honours and awards as transition veterans that denote themselves on times like Anzac Day, and that hold so much to their personal moral fabric. Where we need now is a proactive outreach to those to make sure that, just like the systemic issues, they are not left to not reach out for help and not kill themselves. We lost 5 veterans last week during Remembrance Day, the Remembrance Day week. So Voice of the Veteran is here, and I'm going to call on the government, the Department of Veterans Affairs, the Department of Defence to now come forth with a proactive mental health plan. And for any Special Forces personnel who have seen this report, who need help, I have a handful of volunteer Special Forces personnel who served on these operations who stand by and are ready to help and support you, because veterans helping veterans is the immediate short-term solution. So please head online to voiceofaveteran.org. People can find me. We need to start supporting each other, and we need the system to realise what's already identified within this report and to conduct a proactive outreach approach.
Voiceofaveteran.org, and that's where they'll find you, Heston, and others supporting them. Okay, well, I appreciate your time, Heston Russell, and sobering to hear that number as well that you said about veterans. The loss of 5 last week, just so tragic. But retired Special Forces Commander Heston Russell, I appreciate your time. Thank you for that.
Thanks so much, Kieran.
So you've heard that support there from Heston, but also others now I should mention to you. Open Arms on 1800 011 046. Defence Family Helpline 1800 624 608. Lifeline 131114. And also this number as well, the ADF are wanting to tell us about at length today, and I think it's an important one, a confidential service. This is one where ADF members and their families can call on a confidential basis. 1800 628 036, 1800 628 036, and individual details won't need to be provided on that basis. So if you need help, please reach out.